Hey guys, how you doing? I hope you're doing good. I'm doing good. Today I'd like us to talk about Libra. Don't worry, I won't talk about the technical aspects of Libra. I'm going to be more analytical of what Libra is and what Libra means. I'd like to give you my 2 cents on what I think Libra is. This video won't be a technical deep dive into the internals of Libra, rather it's going to be an analysis on the impact we expect Libra is going to have, especially on the African ecosystem. I'm going to be looking at 3 angles: banking the unbanked strategy that Libra is trying to position itself, especially in the African market, the remittance and the fintech space, the impact Libra is going to have on that, and lastly, I'll finish up on dollar. At the heart of it, Libra is an attempt by Facebook to diversify its business. They want to move away from the ad-heavy revenue model that the Facebook platform is dependent on. Why do they want to move away from the ad-heavy dependency they have on the Facebook social network? Well, it makes sense. Lately, they've been suffering from a lot of controversies, and this will definitely have an impact on their users. And without users, your ad revenue takes a hit. So it makes sense for them to diversify. The key goal for Libra is banking the unbanked, which I personally don't think it's possible. Reason being, most of these apps that claim they want to bank the unbanked, they end up having to integrate with banks. So it kind of doesn't make sense. You're saying that you want to bank the unbanked, but at the same time, you have to integrate into the existing financial channels, the existing financial payment gateways of the banks. So claiming that you're banking the unbanked, it's kind of like stretching it a little. To me, that is. There's no doubt about it that in sub-Saharan Africa, there's a huge subset of people who are not banked. And these people definitely need banking services. They need financial services. But they've been disenfranchised due to a lot of reasons, not necessarily because of banks being expensive or banks being out of reach. A couple of these reasons is definitely something to do with identification. A lot of the people in sub-Saharan Africa lack modern, recognizable, government-issued identification. And this definitely being a KYC requirement for banks, it disenfranchises them from accessing financial services. With regards to remittance and the fintech space, Libra definitely has major opportunity here to cannibalize existing systems, existing platforms. Sub-Saharan Africa is known for being very expensive to send money to. It almost costs about $20 to send money from one person to another. That's a huge fee. And in a place whereby 50% of people live under $1 a day, that can be very disenfranchising to others. The reason why it costs a lot to send money in sub-Saharan Africa, and at times it can even cost about 20% more, is mainly due to corruption and vested interest. I will not go deep down into these issues. I think that's another discussion for another day. But this vested interest, this corruption has essentially ensured that transaction costs, the transaction fees are definitely high for no reason at all. I don't see any reason why it should cost $20 to send money from one person to another, irrespective of the amount. That's a huge fee. With regards to the fintech space, primarily the fintech space in Africa is essentially concentrated around providing solutions that interface with existing financial platforms and the dominant financial platforms being banks and a few mobile money transfer platforms. Thus, for Libra to succeed, it will definitely have to integrate with these existing fintech companies. They have no choice about that. And that's what I mean, that to bank the unbanked, I think that should definitely be left to banks. It's impossible for anyone to say that they're going to bank the unbanked without going through banks and other financial platforms. One of the biggest concerns I have with Libra is that if you go to the Libra website, you're going to see Libra is using pictures of African women, which I don't have a problem with. But this brings up a question: is this solution only targeted for Africa, and why is it looking like they're targeting it for the sub-Saharan Africa market? If you put aside the huge market opportunity, there's another reason, and I think this is the more concrete reason why Libra is positioning itself as a solution for sub-Saharan Africa. If you look at India lately has been cracking down a lot on cryptocurrencies, and definitely it's not good strategy for Facebook to position this for the Indian market. Thus, the other alternative is to position it for sub-Saharan Africa, and I think that's the dominant reason why. Another concern I have with Libra is how Libra is structured. So we know Libra is structured as a consortium whereby Facebook has come together with other companies to form a group of companies that is the Libra consortium. And to me, I'm very skeptic about this, because what Facebook is saying is, hey, you might not trust us, you might not trust our reputation on privacy, but you trust, guys like Visa, guys like Uber, Lyft, guys like MasterCard. And one thing I've also noticed is that the Libra consortium bears an uncanny similarity with another consortium that operated in sub-Saharan Africa in the 1900s, in the early 19th century. This consortium is the Imperial British East African Company. I am a student of history, and I've studied the Imperial British East African Company and its role in the colonization of East Africa in the early 19th century. And to me, it's uncanny how similar both of these consortiums are, because on the left you have Libra, whereby it's a group of companies that have come together essentially to protect their interests. Then you have the Imperial British East African Company, which was under the British Empire, which was formed to protect the British interests. If Libra isn't a consortium of protecting their own interests, why haven't they involved African regulators in their bid to roll out Libra? I mean, I'm yet to see Facebook and Libra making an attempt to come to sub-Saharan Africa and say, hey, this is what Libra is, this is what we intend to do, this is how we'll fit Libra inside the digital ecosystem, inside the regulations that you have. I'm yet to see Facebook and Libra do that. So personally, I believe Libra should be a wake-up call for local regulators that at the moment, hey, these guys are essentially just a group of companies that have come to protect their interest, and they've come to say, this is what we believe how financial transactions should be done, in sub-Saharan Africa. That's my opinion. I don't know. You let me know. What do you think? Hit me up on the comments. What do you think? Is Libra digital imperialism or is it digital altruism? Tell me, what do you think? So don't get me wrong, I think Libra is good. Libra as a financial service solution, it's good for the sub-Saharan market. But again, let's remember that these are untested waters we're in. As much as there's this hype behind cryptocurrencies, at the end of the day, we should do as much as possible to protect innovation, but at the same time, let's remember that these are real people. And again, this is not a typical company. Facebook is not your typical company. I think we do know Facebook has a very murky and muddy reputation with regards to privacy, and once you combine people's financial transactions with the reputation of a company like Facebook, I think we need to be really careful. Personally, I'm all for crypto, but let's remember, as I said earlier, we need banking services, but we don't necessarily need banks. If you look at the website, you're going to notice a lot of pictures of black women in Africa. There's nothing wrong with that. I personally don't have a problem with using black women. I don't have a problem with any company targeting black women for their solutions. But then again, let's remember that poverty porn does exist. It is real. And Facebook has played a huge role in disseminating it. And so my question is, do you see Libra as a poverty porn? Because yes, because remember that Libra was essentially meant to roll out in India, but due to the recent crackdowns by Narendra Modi's government, Facebook has literally had to do a U-turn and essentially now brand Libra as African. And so that's why I'm raising this question. So you tell me, do you think Libra is poverty porn? I personally, I think it is. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. But if you don't see that, please do tell me why. Well, you could play around with semantics and say, hey, these are the women that Facebook is targeting. These are the women in the sub-Saharan market that Libra is seeking to, provide financial services to. It's okay, but to me, if it looks like a goat, if it smells like a goat, then it's definitely a goat. When Libra touts that it's banking the unbanked, Personally, I think it's a bit stretching it, because banking in sub-Saharan Africa is actually more of a social problem than it is a technical problem. Why? It's not that there are no lack of banks in sub-Saharan Africa. There are banks and there are so many mobile money services. But the reason why majority of sub-Saharan Africans are disenfranchised is not due to lack of the technological aspect of financial services. Rather, it's the social side of it. Majority of sub-Saharan Africans are disenfranchised from government services. Government services like an ID. And when an ID is essential for KYC compliance in a bank, then it essentially means that you cannot get banking services. So personally, I think it's more social than it is technical, and Libra is stretching it. With regards to remittance and fintech, I'm also curious to see how Libra is going to adapt locally, because in sub-Saharan Africa, banks dominate the financial space, and if Libra seeks to succeed, it has to adapt locally. And by adapting, it means it has to integrate the financial transaction gateways that banks and mobile money providers have. And again, this raises the earlier question that I said, if you have to go through banks and you have to go through mobile money providers, are you really providing a new service? Are you really banking the unbanked? I personally don't think so. So it's going to be curious to see what's going to happen. Personally, I think Libra is going to find it a bit rough, because mobile money providers and the banks, they don't need them, but Libra kind of needs them in sub-Saharan Africa. They really do. That doesn't mean banks and mobile money providers in sub-Saharan Africa should take Libra lightly. On the contrary, Libra is a disruptor. It's going to disrupt existing business models. It's going to disrupt the existing remittance space. It's going to disrupt the existing fintech ecosystem as it is. They should be really, really concerned, and they should pay close attention to what Libra is doing. Now, lastly, Libra isn't the first company to tackle the banking the unbanked model in Africa. On the contrary, there are many companies that have tried to do this, but on this episode, I'm going to concentrate on one called Dala. Dala was a South African company that tried to engineer a business model whereby it banks the forgotten, the disenfranchised people in South Africa. But unfortunately, they had to close down because they couldn't raise capital. So why did they have to close down? Well, they came upon the conundrum that I raised earlier. Because when you're saying that you're banking the unbanked, you have to go through banks, you have to go through these mobile money providers, and that raises costs. So at the end of it, consumers are going to suffer, and that is what they found out. So they had to close. I think Libra may try to innovate around this. So let's wait and see what they're going to do. That's it. I hope you get another perspective on what Libra is among the fad that is out here. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you didn't, you know what to do, and don't forget to subscribe. Till then, next time.